Welcome to the 2021 Girls Lacrosse Rules and Regulations Interpretation Meeting for Coaches. My name is Bo Rugg. I'm a Senior Director of Officiating and Sport Management at the OHSAA. And we're so excited to have a spring lacrosse season in 2021. Please take a look at this slide before advancing. We've had some problems with people that use the Chromebook device to view this presentation. You may not receive credit, so you may want to use a different device. There will be some COVID-19 considerations and modifications, but the Ohio Department of Health approves and revises our documents. We do not have their revisions at this time, so we will send out the documents to all schools and all coaches as soon as they are available. Here are some resources for you that will help answer questions and guide you through the season. As you know, we didn't have lacrosse last year, and the NFHS did not have any rule changes or print a new rule book, so we will use the 2020 Girls Lacrosse Rulebook. We will have a new Girls Lacrosse Coaches Guide, and we have a new OHSAA Handbook. You can access those at our website at www.ohsaa.org. This online meeting is mandatory for all schools. We highly encourage you have all of your coaches view this meeting. Please don't call us for verification. It takes 5 to 7 days. Athletic directors and coaches, you can check your profile for proof of attendance. The purpose of this online meeting is to give you some administrative rules and regulations and to highlight some NFHS rules and points of emphasis. As mentioned earlier, the head coach is required to view this meeting, but we highly recommend that assistant, JV, freshman coaches, even volunteer coaches, take a look at this meeting. It has a lot of great information. Practice may begin this season on February 22nd. From now until then, there's many things you can do, and we'll talk about some of those regulations here in a few slides. Regular season games may begin on March 19th, not before. Scrimmages may be played anytime between February 22nd and the end of the season, which is June 5th. The Ohio Administrative Code and OHSAA bylaws require all coaches to meet the requirements of the Ohio Department of Education as it relates to the pupil activity permit. This includes all coaches, whether you are paid, unpaid, volunteer. All coaches must have a pupil activity permit. The regulations on the next few slides generate a lot of questions. Let's see if we can answer some of them. Remember, all of these regulations and all of these activities cannot be mandatory. First, open gym, open nets. General Sports Regulation 10. Can't have any coaching or instruction. You can't run drills. No timing or scorekeeping. Coaches can play but not coach. On weightlifting and conditioning, that's General Sports Regulation 9. You can't include specific sport drills in this. And they can be conducted at any time, but they can't be a select group of students participating in these activities. General Sports Regulation 8.2 offers coaches the ability to give individual instruction to players. This allows coaches to provide the same type of instruction outside the season with a limit of 4 players. You can do shooting techniques, wall ball, ground balls, individual skills, but you can't do team drills. Anytime you have more than 4 present, you cannot do team drills and scrimmage under this regulation. Girls Sports Regulation 2.6 talks about indoor lacrosse. It's defined very well, and you really just have to realize that in indoor lacrosse, that's an exception for the out-of-season player restrictions. However, the 50% limitation is in effect if the school coach is coaching. The instructional days between June 1st and July 31st, where you can coach your entire team, are currently unlimited. Junior high days are separate from high school days. Remember, anytime you have more than 6 individuals present, it is considered an instructional day. Remember last year, General Sports Regulation 752 was changed. All school coaches may coach players in all grades 7 through 12 in team play outside the season, club and travel, as long as the 50% limitation, 6 players in girls lacrosse, is adhered to. You still may not coach during the no contact period, which is in August. Scrimmages may begin immediately when practices start. Each high school is permitted to play 3 scrimmages per season. Teams may play in bordering states anytime during the season, as often as they wish. They may play in a non-bordering state only one time per season. If it's a scrimmage or a game out of state, it needs to be the same for both teams. Unfortunately, ejections happen, and let's go over what the specific policies are when a coach or player are ejected. A coach is out for all games the remainder of the day and all contests until 2 at that level competition are complete. Coaches must leave the site if they're ejected. They'll pay a $100 fine and they'll complete the NFHS course. Players are also out for all games the remainder of the day and all contests until 2 at that level of the ejection are complete. Players are to stay in the bench area for the remainder of that game. During their ejection, suspended players may travel with the team to away games, but cannot be in uniform or participate in any warm-up activities. Ejections for fighting changed this year. All the ejection principles are the same, with the exception of the number of contests the coach or player needs to sit out. It is doubled to 4 contests if either is ejected for fighting. Fighting is defined in the NFHS rulebook. All ejections have their own story, but there are no appeals to officials' decisions in games. That includes ejections. There are no appeals. Coaches and officials are required every 3 years to take the concussion course. There's a new concussion course for players at nfhslearn.com. It's a great way for your players to understand what's going on around them as it relates to safety. This is not something we take lightly. We have a system that puts officials into pools to officiate tournament contests. It's a rating and voting system. Coaches rate, and there are others that vote. The coaches' rating instructions are on page 17 of the coach's guide. We encourage you to rate officials. There must be somebody responsible for the administration of games. You have to ensure the safety of the officials. You have to deal with unruly fans. Medical emergencies happen. We have to handle those in a safe manner. And crisis management and weather issues are a big part of what happens at outdoor events. Someone is responsible. It might be you as the coach, but please make sure officials know who the responsible person is at that contest. The field diagrams are located in the NFHS rulebook. We do allow the unified field as an option, but we will be playing neutral site tournament contests as well as our state championships with gender-specific lines. The OHSAA safety policies in relation to inclement weather are now in line with the NFHS rulebook policies. You may find these in the 2020 NFHS Girls Lacrosse Rulebook on page 103. As always, any lightning seen or thunder heard, we evacuate the field and take cover. The 30-minute rule could be in effect. It's always in effect when thunder is heard. If there is only lightning, under certain conditions, we may be able to continue play. That's only if thunder is not heard. When lightning is seen and there is no thunder, you may use a mobile device or any technology to determine if it's safe to play. The coaches, the administrators, and the officials need to get together to make this decision. You can't depend on this technology all the time, but there are certain conditions where it may be safe to play. Remember, if you have had a delay, you may shorten or eliminate halftime. That is up to the game administrators and the coaches whether they would like to do this. If we have a delay, all players and coaches must be out of the field area during the suspension. Officials will do what they have always done, as will game administrators. If any of these people see lightning, stop the contest. Then everybody can get together and determine if it's safe to continue. Remember, if we've heard thunder, we are stopping for 30 minutes. Game administration, coaches, and officials must work together on inclement weather issues. A game that cannot be completed for any reason will be treated as a suspended game. It will be continued from the point of interruption. Games must be completed unless both coaches agree not to complete the game. If interruption occurs in the fourth quarter with 80% or more of the game complete, the team in the lead shall be declared the winner. 80% equals completed game. These are game and player limitations for grades 9 through 12. These athletes may play in a maximum of 46 halves for the season, plus the OHSAA tournament. Coaches are responsible for tracking this. A player is permitted to play in a maximum of 2 games per day, up to a maximum of 3 halves per common opponent. The exception is play days. Overtime is considered an extension of the second half and does not count as an additional half played. Remember, you can play 3 scrimmages and 18 regular season contests. Only high school varsity games may play overtime. Overtime is sudden victory, and you may play a maximum of 2 overtime periods in the regular season. They're 6 minutes each. The teams will change ends after 3 minutes with no delay for coaching. If the 2 overtime periods are completed and the game is tied, it will be a tie game. You need to know who's on your roster and make sure if you have any transfer students that they either A, meet one of the 9 exceptions, and if they don't meet an exception, they will be ineligible after game 9, and they may not play in postseason tournaments. Check and double check with your athletic director. Comments to the news media is not just about being in front of a microphone anymore. Facebook, Twitter, all of these things can get you in trouble. Please think before you make comments to the news media. Looking ahead to the tournament, we will run this out of the OHSAA office. The regional assignments will stay very much the same. Of course, if we have a lot fewer teams in a region or a lot more because of schools adding or not entering the tournament, they could change a little bit. The draw will be May 9th and the state finals are June 5th. If you have an issue with something dealing with the tournament, please ask. We do not feel that distance traveled to a contest, whether one team goes a little further than the other, is an issue. And a team playing on a field multiple times is not an issue. Again, rain or less than ideal field conditions, if it's not lightning, we're going to play. And we will try to put games on the best surface possible. Don't forget there's great information on the website at www.ohsaa.org on the girls lacrosse page for all the information you need. The following slides are a presentation of rules and rule changes as well as points of emphasis for girls lacrosse. The presenter for these is Lissa Fickert, our Director of Officiating Development.
Because last year's season was interrupted, there are no new rules for this year. There are some new 2021 materials that support and clarify last year's rules changes, and I encourage you to check them out. There are no new 2021 rule books. Play will be governed by the 2020 rules book. If you are in need of a rules book, links to obtain rules books are shown here. Hard copy and e-books are available to purchase through the NFHS website. Let's begin by reviewing the points of emphasis. The committee feels that these three areas of play warrant increased attention and consistency in managing to improve play: starts and restarts, delay of game, and repeated fouls. Starts and restarts. As the game progresses with the addition of free movement, it is imperative that the game not be slowed down by improper starts and restarts. Be very proactive with all whistle starts. Officials should be quick and firm to announce my whistle or whistle start. Hold to advantage when appropriate. Reset self-starts that are outside of playing distance. If whistle start is required and a player self-starts, a false start penalty will be administered. Do not hesitate to enforce repetitive miscues as delay early in the game to set the tone for efficient and fair play. Delay of game. Officials need to manage delays. Offensive and defensive delays of game are counter to the concept of increased flow of play. Officials must manage these early and consistently to establish an efficient pace. Officials should focus on players that repeatedly attempt to self-start beyond a playing distance, fail to move or stand when directed, encroach on the ball carrier, do not abide by the parameters of self-start and player movement. Officials are encouraged to manage delays with warnings and administering green, green-yellow, and yellow delay of game cards. Repeated fouls. This point of emphasis focuses on limiting repetitive fouls and managing illegal play, especially with the introduction of free movement. Repeated fouls raise concern for safety and fairness and require our attention. Fouls that repeatedly disrupt the flow of the game may result in dangerous play, may place players at risk, illegally allow a team to control the game, and may lead to retaliation. It is important that officials develop an awareness of situations when players or teams continually foul. Out of control, reckless, and rough play that is repetitive must be managed. Since free movement allows players not directly involved in the play to continue to move, it introduces new coaching strategies to be aware of in addition to the present issues of safety. Officials should consider, what's the pattern? It's important that officials develop an awareness of situations when players or teams continually foul. Watch for patterns. Is it the same team, same player, or same target? Is it a means to let defense get down the field? Is it a means to delay play, kill a penalty, or allow the clock to run? To be clear, delaying transitions, killing a penalty, or having the clock run are strategies of the game. They should not be penalized if done legally. Officials need to be aware of situations when teams and players continually foul, utilize warnings to change behavior, and administer cards when appropriate. This year's rules include changes in 4 major categories: sticks and equipment, free movement, which has the primary intent to improve the pace of the game and allow for a less restrictive experience for the athletes, modifications to starts and restarts to coordinate with free movement, and foul and penalty administration. Officials are encouraged to prepare for the upcoming season by reviewing the entire 2020 rules book and all supplemental materials provided by U.S. Lacrosse. While shooting strings have to be attached directly to the sidewall of the stick, they do not have to go through stringing holes. The stick inspection procedure has changed slightly, affecting only the back face of the pocket. Officials shall check the front side of the pocket as they have in the past. Now, when inspecting the back of the stick, the official will drop the ball into the upper third of the head at its widest point. Apply pressure 1 time and check for pocket depth. Tilt the stick and head 90 degrees to ensure the ball rolls out of the pocket. Beginning January 1, 2021, the goalkeeper's chest protector must meet the NOCSE standard for lacrosse. The currently certified protectors may be found on the SEI website. Officials are not expected to visually inspect the chest protector. Officials shall say, "Coach, do you certify that all of your team's equipment is legal under the rules, including a legal goalkeeper chest protector as required for the 2021 season?" If a legal chest protector is not available, no one may play in the goal circle unless her team has the ball. Equipment shall not be modified from its manufactured state and shall be worn in the manner that the manufacturer intended it to be worn. This includes additions, adornments, or devices that alter the equipment, including such items as face shields, mohawk attachments, and GoPros. This added language emphasizes the responsibility of the player and the coach to maintain the integrity of the protective equipment and ensure that aftermarket adjustments are not used to void certifications or limit effectiveness. Umpires, what do you do if you see this? During a pregame check, be proactive and fix if possible. First time during play, a substitute must replace the offending player unless a correction can be made without delay. A free position for a minor foul shall be awarded. Subsequent times during play, apply the delay of game procedures. Rules already required that eyewear legal for play must be SEI certified and listed on the Safety Equipment Institute website. The new rule states that eyewear must have the SEI certification mark on it by January 1, 2025. A link to the SEI website can be found on the USL website, and coaches, please check the list for your team's compliance. Officials shall continue to ask coaches to verbally certify that all of their team's equipment is legal under the rules. They are not required to visibly certify. Electronic devices, video replay, or television monitoring may not be used for any review of an official's decision during the game. All officials wish to get it right, and most are open to having a discussion after the game, between games, but not during the game and not just before the game. Free movement. Following any whistle, regardless of the restart being a whistle or a self-start, all players, other than the ball carrier and the offender, if it is a foul, may move freely. The offender still moves behind or away as directed. And note that self-start and free movement are not always linked. There is still free movement even when the self-start is not allowed, like in the CSA, or when the clock is stopped under 2 minutes. A few self-start reminders. No self-starts in the critical scoring area, including fouls committed by an attack that are now coming out of the CSA. No self-starts under 2 minutes in each half unless there is a 10-goal differential. Players must be making an attempt to move away from the player, and the offender must attempt to move away or behind. General requirements for free movement. Players not involved in a free position may move freely on the field during a whistle or stoppage of play, except they shall move 4 meters away from the player taking a free position, restarting from a timeout, or from an alternate possession. Move 2 meters away from the ball carrier bringing the ball onto the field from out of bounds. Comply with all rules of the draw positioning, free positions, penalty zone, penalty lane, and goal circle. Remember, self-start and free movement are not linked. Free movement is allowed when self-start is not allowed, such as when the ball is in the CSA or when the clock is stopped. Free movement and substitutions. These substitution rules have not changed. Player must wait for the player they are subbing for to leave the field before they may enter the field. May not come onto the field after officials' hands are on the sticks at the draw. Must enter through the substitution area. May not enter during an injury or misconduct timeout, and may not substitute during a redraw. These free movement substitutions are new. Free movement allows the substitution to continue after the whistle. The replacement player does not need to wait in the sub box for the restart of play. All players except the player who was fouled and the offender may substitute during team timeouts. How do we handle a free movement timeout if there is no foul? Place the ball at the spot of the timeout. If called in the CSA, place the ball at the nearest dot unless the goalkeeper has possession in the goal circle. If the goalkeeper has possession of the ball in the goal circle, play shall resume with the goalkeeper in possession in the goal circle. The official will continue the count from where she left off before play was stopped. Players do not need to leave their sticks. Any player may resume the play. All players must be 4 meters away when restarting. How do we handle a timeout if there's a foul? First of all, set up the penalty administration with the fouled player and the offender leaving their sticks on the field. These two players must return to resume play. Officials need to note player numbers to ensure that the same two players take the free position. Other substitutions are allowed. All players must be 4 meters away when restarting. In what instances must a player stand? While the word stand was taken out of the rulebook, there are a few situations where they may not start until a whistle. Therefore, technically, they are still standing. 1. A player who is fouled when self-starts is not allowed must stand for the free position until the whistle. 2. A player who is directed to move 4 meters behind or away must stand until the whistle or the ball carrier commences play. All other players may move provided they do not enter any restricted areas. For example, a 4 meter around the ball carrier, the penalty lane, and the penalty zone if the foul administration involves those areas. Free movement in the CSA. Players not involved in a free position may move freely on the field during a whistle or stoppage of play when play is within the CSA, except they shall clear the penalty zone or penalty lane when applicable. The goalkeeper may move back into the goal circle if she is not involved in a free position, is not bringing the ball in from out of bounds, or there is not an illegal deputy foul. Alternate possession or fouls below the goal line extended are set up on the dot. Free movement still applies with everyone 4 meters away from any restart. Management of the zone and lane for a free position in the CSA. When restarting play for an 8 meter or 12 meter free position, the official will direct the player fouled and the offender to appropriate positions on the field. Take a few steps in to clear the penalty zone or lane, and note if we're clearing the penalty zone, defenders may have the adjacent hashes on an 8 meter free position. When the area is clear and the ball carrier and offender are ready, back out into appropriate restarting place. As official backs out, all restricted areas are closed. Restricted areas include 4 meters from the free position and penalty lane or zone, depending upon the setup. Players excluding the ball carrier and the offender may continue to move freely outside the penalty zone or lane. The official shall take a few steps back out, stand still, put their arm up, and restart play. Players entering the restricted area after arm is raised and before the whistle have false started, and the foul should be handled accordingly. Be proactive in managing the players who may cut through restricted areas after play is set and before the arm is raised. Reset the free position if necessary. Repetitive violations of restricted area should be handled as delay. To note, free position has been set, but the arm has not been raised. If a defender or a teammate violate the restricted areas at that time, be proactive, reset, and encourage them to stay where they belong once you start backing out. If they repeatedly do this, then we can talk about delay. 2. Once the arm has gone up by the official restarting play, any player entering the restricted areas has now committed a false start. This is a foul and needs to be enforced accordingly. Starting and restarting play. There may now be fewer than 12 players per team on the field at the draw. Officials no longer need to wait for a full complement of players to begin the draw. Officials should still count players to confirm that there are not more than 12 and that there are not more than 3 per team between the restraining lines. Players are not allowed to enter the field after the official's hands are on the sticks for the draw. This is not new. However, it may come into play more since the requirement for 12 players to start has been removed. If a player has not been on the field in time for the draw, she may enter the field when there is a possession, the ball goes out of bounds, crosses the restraining line, or there is a foul. If she enters prior to any of those 4 items, it is a minor foul. In most cases, it will be a whistle start because the game clock is stopped after a goal. It may be a self-start if the clock is running. The player who did not come in on time may enter on the whistle or the self-start because possession has been awarded. Since there is no longer a requirement for 12 players to start on the draw, play may continue down below the restraining line and there still not be 12 players on the field. So be aware that there are times that there may be fewer than 4 behind the restraining line. This does not matter. Count ahead for the proper numbers to enforce offside. These boundary requirements have not changed with the exception of the space given around the player returning to play. To review, when a ball goes out of bounds, the opponent nearest the ball shall bring it inbounds. The ball carrier shall bring the ball inbounds relative to the spot where the ball went out of bounds. Opponents must give the ball carrier 2 meters of free space, stick and feet. This may be from the boundary or from the player if she may not self-start. If the opponent engages within the 2 meters, the play shall be whistled and reset. The ball carrier may self-start at any time or wait for the whistle. Card for delay of game for repeated violations. The new part of the boundary restart does not require the player to pause when coming in bounds. However, she must step in bounds up to 2 meters and wait for a whistle when the clock is stopped. She may never pass from out of bounds. This is not a foul, it would be a reset. Repetitive violations could be a delay of game. The words body or cross were added to clarify what is considered when determining who is closest and should be awarded the ball. Also, remember, the end line is treated like any other boundary and players may self-start even if in the CSA if the self-start is allowed. Foul and penalty administration. Cover, check to the head, and false start rules were modified. Covering occurs when a player's foot or body or cross prevents an opponent from playing the ball. Check to the head, which is a mandatory card. The rule now includes the neck to be part of the foul of check to the head. The 7-inch sphere already includes the neck, so this modification brings the foul for a check to the head in line with the sphere as a protected area. This increases the official's ability to make safety-related calls and emphasizes the importance of penalizing stick-to-head and stick-to-neck contact. False start. Before the whistle, step or make any movement simulating the beginning of play designed to gain an advantage over one's opponent, which is not a new rule. Just to reiterate. Also not new, but rather a clarification that on a free position in the critical scoring area, entering restricted areas after the official has raised their arm and before the whistle is a false start. Restricted areas include the 4 meters around the ball carrier and may also be the penalty zone or penalty lane, depending upon where the penalty is being enforced. False start, when a self-start is not an option, is a new rule. As a reminder, a self-start is not an option when the game clock is stopped, there is an offside violation, foul in the critical scoring area, including 3 seconds, even if the ball is outside the critical scoring area because the foul occurred in the 8-meter. The goalkeeper has a boundary restart from her goal circle, an alternate possession is awarded, an inadvertent whistle occurs, or a goal is scored. Remember, it is not a false start when a player self-starts from beyond playing distance or when a player self-starts without pausing. This is a reset. It is also not a false start when a player restarts play on a boundary ball by throwing the ball in from out of bounds. This, too, is a reset. For a major foul by a defense player within 8 meters of the goal circle, above the goal line extended, the defending players are now entitled to the adjacent hash marks. With free movement, any defending player, other than the player who fouled, may take an adjacent hash. One defensive player is entitled to an adjacent hash. Players next to them may be from either team and entitled to an open position when they arrive. Attack players may take the hash if the defense does not. For a major foul by a defensive player between the arc and the fan, the free position will be taken on the 12-meter fan closest to the spot of the foul. All players' bodies and crosses must clear the penalty lane. This change is intended to simplify the penalty administration. This is a direct free position. For a major foul by the defense that occurs between the 8 and 12, the free position will be taken on the 12-meter fan closest to the spot of the ball and the offender placed behind. The Player fouls, moves to the 12-meter fan. The offender is 4 meters behind her. The penalty lane is cleared and free movement is allowed around the 2 yellow lines. The official raises her arm. The penalty lane is closed. The attacker and offender must stand. All players must be 4 meters from the free position, and the whistle starts. Again, this is a direct free position, and the player may shoot.
Rule interpretations should be directed towards Lissa Fickert at the email shown, or to me, Bo Rugg, at my email.
Come join us again at the state championships on Saturday, June the 5th, 2021 at Ohio Wesleyan University. Thank you for listening and learning. Good luck in your season.